Hey guys, Luke on Sean's channel. Today I'll be profiling Cyberdragons. Cyberdragons are one of my favorite decks. We play with it a lot on this channel. Some Masto videos, some deck profiles, some live duels. Definitely check those out. But this is a new updated Cyberdragon deck, so without further ado, let's just get into it. Of course, we run 3 copies of the main man himself, 3 copies of Cyberdragon. He is the namesake of this deck, so definitely run him at 3. The more you maximize him, the more chance you're going to see him, which is very, very good. This is pretty much a going second deck, which is really good for Cyberdragon because he has the effect that if your opponent controls a monster and you control no monster, you can special summon this card from the hand. Pretty much as simple as that. But not only that, when we maximize the Cyberdragon, it makes our machine duplication a lot better when we use machine dupe on one of our smaller Cyberdragon monsters. Since our names are Cyberdragon on the field, you actually bring out your Cyberdragons when you use machine dupe. So 3 copies of it, definitely essential for the build. Maximize your copies of Core. Core is a really, really good Cyberdragon monster. So of course, pretty much all the Cyberdragon monsters are going to show you their names are Cyberdragon on the field or in the graveyard, so you can keep that in mind. What Core does is a mandatory effect on summon. When it is normal summoned, you can add 1 Cyber spell trap from your deck to your hand. But Core also has a graveyard effect that if you control no monsters and your opponent controls a monster and Core is in the graveyard, what you can do is banish Core and special 1 Cyberdragon monster from your deck, which is really, really good, so definitely maximize your copies of Core. I'm going to run 2 copies of Herz. I think it's no longer necessary to maximize Herz. Herz is a really, really good card, however, I don't think running at 3 is optimal. The thing about Herz is he has 2 effects, but you can only activate one or the other once per turn. So Herz, if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 Cyberdragon from your deck or graveyard to your hand. But the other effect that if this card is special summoned, you can make this card low become level 5, which is good for your XYZ plays. We mostly use the secondary effect when it's in the graveyard to add a Cyberdragon from our graveyard or deck to our hand. One thing I must point out though, with Herz, since it says you add Cyberdragon, if you're adding something from the deck, it has to be Cyberdragon. However, if you're adding from the graveyard, since your other Cyberdragon monsters are Cyberdragon in the graveyard, you can actually add a copy of Core or Nachster that's in the graveyard to your hand when Herz is sent to the graveyard, which is really, really good. Also run 1 copy of Cyberdragon Nachster. Nachster, you only need to run at 1. He was only ran at 2 anyways in other previous builds, but only cutting down to 1 I think is probably most optimal. We don't really necessarily need him an awful lot. Nachster locks us into machines, which isn't too bad considering this deck is pretty much all machines. However, it can be a bit unsavory if you want to go for our Almirage plays and stuff like that. But the good thing about Nachster is you can discard 1 other light machine from your hand to special summon this card out on the field. And when this card is special summoned, what I can do is target 1 light machine monster in the graveyard whose original attack is 2100 and special summon it out. So not only does that bring back your Cyberdragon, but also your Nova and stuff as well. So 2 copies of Herz and 1 copy of Nachster, more than enough for this build. The only Cyberdark we run is Cyberdark Chimera. Honestly, I was kind of like in between even adding this, but I still think it's very, very good. If you want to cut this and add some consistency cards such as Upstarter or anything like that, you can go right ahead, no problem at all. The only reason why I think Chimera is worth playing is because if you normal summon Core, there's an easy way that you can bring out Chimera and then discard a spell to add Power Bond. That's pretty much the main reason we run Chimera. So because we can play less copies of Power Bond now. Chimera on the field, you can discard 1 spell or trap and add 1 Power Bond from your deck to your hand. And also you can use, if you're fusion summoning this turn, you can use monsters in the graveyard as material by banishing them instead. So definitely I think Chimera is worth running at 1. It could be sided out depending on the matchup, but also it can be cut altogether depending on how you like to play the deck. It's completely up to you. Another 1-of that we run, but then again we do complete the playset in the side, is Jizukiru. This is a Kaiju, and since it's a light machine Kaiju, we're actually able to search it off of a repair plant, so I think it's definitely worth main decking. Also, the fact that it's a machine is really, really good because we get on the opponent's side of the field. What we can do if we control a Cyberdragon, we could just contact fuse our Cyberdragon with Jizukiru to bring out Fortress as well, which is still very, very good. Finally, rounding off the other monsters in this build, we run 1 copy of Regulus. Regulus is really good. You can special summon from the hand by equipping 1 machine monster from the graveyard to him. And Regulus is a really, really great Omni Negate. I think it's definitely really, really good at playing him in this build. Not only that, but you can also search him if you have Clockwork Night in the graveyard as well. So definitely 1 copy of Regulus I find to be very, very good. And that pretty much rounds off the monsters. Not forgetting Ash though. Ash, just, you know, the most universal hand trap. Definitely maximize it at 3. We're going into the spells now. We run 3 copies of Cyber Emergency. Cyber Emergency is the searcher of the deck. You can pretty much add any Cyber Dragon monster from your deck to hand with Cyber Emergency, so definitely maximize it to 3 copies. You want your Cyber Dragons in your hand as quickly as possible, so 3 copies of that. Also, all these cyber spells I'm going to show you now, they're all searchable off of core. 1 copy of Cyber Revsystem. Cyber Revsystem special summon 1 Cyber Dragon from your hand or your graveyard, and it cannot be struck by card effects. Very, very good, because since again it specifically says Cyber Dragon, you can actually special summon one of your smaller Cyber Dragon monsters in the graveyard when you're using Revsystem. 1 copy of Cyber Repair Plant. Repair Plant is very, very good, however, just meeting the condition, it can be a bit annoying. So if you have Cyber Dragons in your graveyard, if you have Cyber Dragon in the graveyard, you can activate one of these effects, but if you have 3 or more Cyber Dragons in the graveyard, you can activate both these effects. First effect being, you can add 1 light machine monster from your deck to your hand. Second effect being, target 1 light machine monster in your graveyard, shuffle that target into the deck. So 1 copy of Repair Plant I find to be more than enough. Also again, searchable off of core. And we also run Cyberload Fusion. Cyberload Fusion is really, really good. I remember when this card was so expensive. I'm glad that it's actually affordable now. Cyberload Fusion is a quick play spell. What it does is you can fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck that lists a Cyber Dragon monster as material by shuffling the fusion material listed on it into the deck from among the cards on the field and face up banished cards. Which is really, really good, because especially if we're putting this hand in hand with Overload Fusion, we're able to banish a lot of our Cyber Dragon monsters and then bring them right back with Cyberload Fusion. The one downside is though, the monster you bring out with this is the only monster that can attack after his card resolves, so you definitely want to be using this during the battle phase. But still, 1 copy of Cyberload Fusion, definitely more than enough. Our final cyber spell trap is Cyberdark Realm. We pretty much just search this so that we're able to add our Cyberdark Chimera from our deck to our hand, and then after we do that, we're able to normal summon it as an addition to our regular normal summon. Which is why this card is an essential combo piece if you're 1 card comboing with core to get your power bond. So 1 copy of Realm. We run 1 copy of Machine Duplication. This may seem strange, but hear me out. Machine Duplication, the only reason we run it at 1, although it is a great card and it's able to bring us out 2 of our Cyber Dragons when played correctly, the only reason why we run it at 1 is because you also run 2 copies of Triple Tactics Trust. I will say that there's been a few situations where Machine Duplication has been a bit of an issue, where I opened more than 1 copy of it in my hand without having any of the smaller Cyber Dragons in my hand as well to take full advantage of Machine Dupe. So I think if you cut it down to 1, and then if you add Triple Tactics Trust to the build in order to search it, and as well as having the option to search this or one of your other powerful normal spells, I think it's definitely worth just a little bit more. So only run 1 Machine Duplication and 2 Thrust I find to be very, very good, and the fact that Thrust is getting a reprint in the new Maze is still very, very good. Another powerful spell that we can search off for Thrust is our Talents. Talents is just an amazing card. If you want to maximize this, you can, but I think 1 is more than enough because we're still going very, very tight in this build, so I only run a 1 copy. 3 copies of Clockwork Night. This I have no problem maximizing. I think it's probably for the best that you do. What Clockwork Night does is it makes all face-up monsters on the field become machine monsters. Not only that, but also all machine monsters that you control gain 500 attack and defense, but also all machine monsters your opponent controls lose 500 attack and defense. Not only is this good for lowering your opponent's monsters, but the fact that it turns them all into machine is really, really good, because Chimeratech Forces Dragon is a card. Forces Dragon is one hell of a card. If you control a Cyber Dragon monster, you can actually contact fuse machine monsters from either side of the field to go into them, which is a really, really good way to kind of like wipe your opponent's board that can't really be interrupted with. Clockwork Night is really, really good addition to this deck. I find maximizing it to be essential. 2 copies of Duality. Duality is a very, very good card. What this is mostly for is you contribute 1 lighter dark monster to special summon 1 lighter dark monster from your hand or extra deck with the same original type and level, but a different attribute. The reason why this is so good is we can use our Cyber Dragon use Duality on it to immediately go into Chimeratech Rampage Dragon. It's really good for that, and the fact that it's a quick play that you can activate during the battle phase as well is really good for kind of finish things off with OTKs. I see some people maximize their copies of Duality to 3, but I actually have seen it as a break in a load of different circumstances, not only in this build but also a few other decks that I play Duality in. It can sometimes just really bite you in the butt, so I think running Duality at 2, absolutely fine. It's pretty much all you need. One copy of Call by the Grave. This is very much a combo deck. One copy of Call by, essential for the build. We run the one copy of Overload Fusion because, of course, this is a Cyber Dragon build. We use Overload Fusion to go into a Rampage Dragon or even Overdragon. So it's very good to go into our big fusion monsters in order to go in for the win or the OTK. And then also one copy of Power Bond. This is searchable off of the Cyberdark Chimera. So only running at 1, but also another thing I'd like to point out, the fact that these are both normal spells, they are also searchable off of Thrust if we are put into that situation. So one copy each of these is more than enough. This is very much a going second deck, so 2 copies of Lightning Storm. Unfortunately this is semi-limited, so we can only play it at 2, but still definitely maximize it if this card gets unlimited again someday. Now, 3 copies of Forbidden Droplet. Forbidden Droplet is an insane card. What this card does is you can send any number of other cards from your hand and or field to the graveyard, choose that many effect monsters your opponent controls, until end of this turn their attack is halved. Also their effects are negated. This is really good just because it keeps the monsters on the field that we're able to special summon Cyber Dragons off of. Definitely worth the run. And also the fact that it's just negating monster effects on the field is really great too. Moving on to the traps now, of course we run 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. I mean, it has Nova on it, of course we're playing this. Infinite Impermanence, definitely a very good hand trap. Maximize it if you can, and also a good thing I will say, it is searchable off of Thrust as well, so keep that in mind. Final card to build, 1 copy of Evenly Matched. You already know what Evenly Matched does, it's a good board breaker. If we're caught in a position where we can't win with an OTK, Evenly Matched is still really good because not only is it searchable off of Thrust, it's also a good sort of battle trick as well. If we just can't pull off winning, if we go down the route where we need to go more control, like Evenly Matched is a very good board breaker. Only run it at 1 though, because the whole point of the deck is OTKing, and the fact that this can only be activated during the end of the battle phase kind of bites us a little bit. So 1 copy is more than enough for the build. Going into the extra deck now, we run 2 copies of Chimeratech Rampage Dragon. Rampage Dragon, for a long time, probably my favorite card. Rampage Dragon is very good because it takes 2+ Cyber Dragon monsters in order to go into him. That is Cyber Dragon monsters, doesn't necessarily need to be Cyber Dragon himself. Depending on the amount of fusion materials you use when going into him, you can pop that many spells or traps on the field when he's brought out, which is very good spell and trap card removal if we don't have access to our Lightning Storm. But not only that, Rampage has another effect that you can send up to 2 other Cyber Dragon monsters from your deck to the graveyard, and then Rampage can make that many additional attacks during the battle phase of this turn. Reason why that is so good is because although he has a small attack with only 2100, you can actually bring this card out with Power Bond to make it 4200 attack and able to attack 3 times. Which is really good, can definitely get you to win there. But also, if you're not in a position where you have Power Bond, if you have Seeger and use Seeger effects to boost up Rampage Dragon, that's still 4200 going in 3 times, which is just absolutely great. It's more than enough damage to win. Running Chimeratech Rampage Dragon at 2 at least is a definite for this build. So 2 copies of Rampage. 2 copies of Chimeratech Forces Dragon. The main reason we run Clockwork Night, it's an easy way to kind of like wipe our opponent's board if they have all machine monsters, i.e. with a Clockwork Night, or if they're playing just a machine deck. Forces Dragon, and he's 1 Cyber Dragon and 1 or more machine type monsters on the field. You don't use any polymerization or anything to go into him. This is a contact fuse. So using Forces Dragon is a good way that your opponent cannot interrupt with it. You know, the way your opponent can kind of respond to the likes of some of your fusion spells and stuff like that. But considering that Fortress just gets rid of all of their monsters as sort of a conditional cost to bring them out, is a way that they can't really interact with. So 2 copies of Forces Dragon, definitely essential for the build. I also run 2 copies of Chimeratech Megafleet. If you want to run at 1, that's absolutely fine, but I find in more situations than not, running 2 is probably a little bit better. Megafleet is very good. It's very similar to Forces Dragon where you use Contact Fuse in order to go into him, But with Megafleet, you don't need machine monsters that are on the field. All you need is Cyberdragon and 1+ monster in the extra monster zone. So this can apply to pretty much anything. Say your opponent has like their boss monster in the extra monster zone, all you need to do is bring out Cyberdragon and then contact fuse directly into Megafleet. Absolutely great to kind of like get rid of that big boss monster in a way that they can't really interrupt. So 2 copies of Megafleet, definitely really good in this build. If you want to run it at 1, absolutely fine. Doesn't really matter. If you want to play something else, that's cool as well. But running it at that, I think is very, very good. You also run 1 copy of Cyber Twin Dragon. Cyber Twin Dragon is very good. Not only does it list Cyber Dragon as a fusion material, which is essential for a card we're going to talk about a little bit later, but also since Cyber Twin Dragon is a level 8, as well as our Fortress Dragon being a level 8, what we can actually do is if we go in for a bunch of damage with our Fortress Dragon, and if we're still in the battle phase and have Duality, we can actually Duality the Fortress Dragon into Twin and go for the game from there. Twin is really, really good. Not only that, it can attack twice each battle phase. The fact that it's 2800, it's able to go up to 56 if you bring it out with Power Bond. I definitely think Twin is worth the run in this build. We also run Chimeratech Overdragon. Overdragon, absolutely great. So when he's brought out using Cyberdragon and 1+ machine monsters. So this card can be fusion summoned using our Overload Fusion. So we have a bunch of machine monsters in our actual graveyard. We can just Overload Fusion to go into this guy. This guy gains 800 attack and defense times the number of each material used for its summon. So you can bring up to a ridiculous amount of attack. However, the only downside of it is that when this card is brought out, you have to wipe your field. So you're going to be using him as sort of a last resort, using everything on your field and your graveyard if you're Overload Fusing into him. But it can still get you to win a lot of times just because you can bring him up to a ridiculous amount of attack and then you're able to go in for the kill on that turn. But also, each turn this card can attack your opponent's monsters to the number of times equal to the same amount of fusion materials as used for fusion summoned. So the fact he's able to attack on multiple monsters is still really, really good. Definitely running him at 1 I find to be very, very good for the build. Going to XZs now, we run 2 copies of Nova. Nova's great. Nova has a pretty cool, interesting effect that what you can do is when he's on the field, if you have a Cyberdragon in your graveyard, you can detach a material from Nova and then bring out a Cyberdragon from the grave, which is really good because say if your target in the graveyard is Core, since his name is still Cyberdragon in the graveyard, you can actually detach the Cyberdragon you use to bring out Nova, and then what you can do is actually bring out that Cyberdragon you just attached since you already had the target beforehand. Nova is also pretty good because it has a quick effect that honestly I don't use an awful lot. But basically what it does is you can banish one other Cyberdragon monster on the field or in your hand, and this card gains an additional 2100 attack until the end phase, which can be very, very good. But most of the time when we're using Nova, it's not really to use Nova, although he is a good card. We mostly use him so we can overlay into Infinity, which is a really, really good card. Infinity gains 200 attack for each material used on him, for each material that he has attached to him. But not only that, he's also able to suck up a attack position monster your opponent controls in order to gain an additional material. And what he also has once per turn is an Omni Negate. So if your opponent activates a monster effect, a spell, or a trap card, Infinity can attach material to negate and destroy that card, which is still very, very good. So running 2 of each of these cards I find to be very, very good. But you know, since we also play XZs, it's expected that we play Zeus. Zeus is just a great way to overlay it on top of Infinity, which can be really, really good, especially if Infinity's been on the field sucking other material up for his summon to go into Zeus. Zeus is a really, really powerful board wipe as well by just attaching 2 materials, and it's very easy to have 4 materials onto him if you're using Infinity to go into him. So 1 copy of Zeus, definitely very, very good for the build. Rounding things off, we'll just go for the links. 1 copy of Seeger. Seeger is really, really good. What he can do is, during the battle phase, if he didn't attack this turn, what he can do is actually target 1 other monster that you control, and it can gain an additional 2100 attack this turn, which is really, really good if you're going for your Rampage, who's attacking 3 times, and boost him up a little bit more so he's able to attack 3 times with 4200 attack. Seeger is really, really good, but not only that, with Seeger, neither player takes any battle damage with attacks involving this card. So Seeger is very good for that. So I definitely think running him at 1 is essential. And then rounding off the extra deck, 1 copy of Almirage. If we're in a situation where we need Almirage, if we normal summon Core and we get interrupted, Almirage is a good way to kind of get Core off the field, get into the graveyard, and kind of try and pop off from there. And that about rounds off the extra deck. We're going to go into the side deck now. Going into the side deck now, I finish off the playset of Jizukiru. Honestly, I think it is very, very good to do this. Reason being that if you are playing against an opponent whose deck mostly consists of like big, powerful like towers of monsters that you can't really out by battle or by destruction, Kaijus are just a really, really great answer to that. And the fact that this Kaiju benefits us with the fact that it's a machine, I think is definitely worth putting in the side. Just so if we're going into game 2 or 3 where we need to see the Kaiju more, rounding off the playset in the side deck I find to be very, very good. We run 3 copies of DD Crow. Just because this format is kind of like shaping up that we do need to be banishing a lot of stuff from the graveyard. I see Diabellstar, Fire King is kind of like rising up a little bit, and you're able to take advantage of DD Crow by banishing Pompulus, which will be released soon enough, so you can't really get all their sort of bullshit effects. So DD Crow is definitely a staple, I think, that will be used a lot in this format, so definitely maximize it there. And 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird. Droll is definitely going to be another one of these cards that's going to be a staple of the format. Definitely run it at 3. Since this is a going second build, another copy of Triple Tax in the side deck. If we're going in and we know our opponent has a lot of disruption during our turn, the extra copy of Triple Tack might still be really, really good going into further games. So getting another copy in the side deck I find to be very good. If you want to play something else, absolutely fine. But if we are in a situation where we want to see more of it, going game 2 or 3, just the extra copy does no harm. Now, rounding off the side deck, we run 3 copies of Fusion Deployment. The reason why this is in the side is because when we're going into a game, we do not necessarily know what the other, what our opponent is playing. They might be playing cards that are pretty much anti-fusion and stuff like that. If they're playing anti-spell or if they're playing dimensional barrier, whatever. We need to make sure that we're not just relying on the one sort of win condition where we're using our fusions in order to basically win the game. If we need to rely on XZs, that's really good. Fusion Deployment locks us into fusions, which can be a shame, especially considering how powerful our XZs can be. But it can still be really good if we are going into the game 3 and we know for a fact we just need to beat our opponent as quickly as possible. Using Fusion Deployment as a side deck option I think is really good because it's something that your opponent mightn't necessarily expect if they didn't see it from you in the first 2 games. I definitely think it's definitely worth the run. I wouldn't necessarily main deck it, and I'm still hemming and hawing between even keeping it in the side deck. If Labyrinth is going to be a big issue in this format, maybe Royal Decree might be something to play in the side instead of this. But I'm still not fully convinced. If you want to play this deck going full fusions, definitely main deck Fusion Deployment. But I kind of like to use this as sort of a hybrid of what Cyberdragons are meant to be. They're able to kind of go down a bunch of different avenues, which is why I keep Fusion Deployment in the side deck. But if you're really passionate about making this a proper OTK build, just using fusions, yeah, Fusion Deployment might be pretty good to main deck. But that's just not how I'm playing it. But again, the deck is open to interpretation. You can build it however way you want. But that's just me. I was thinking about board breakers for this. Since Cyberdragons are very, very good at sort of like breaking your opponent's boards, one thing that I think you should probably take in consideration is 2 copies of Book of Eclipse. So I used to run Raigeki a lot, but the only problem with Raigeki is the fact that it destroys monsters, and a lot of monsters can be destroyed by card effects. A lot of decks kind of interact with destruction and stuff like that. But what makes Book of Eclipse so good is that it actually just flips down all the monsters to be face down. The reason why I like that so much is because it still leaves a monster up on your opponent's side of the field that you can just special summon your Cyberdragon. But not only that, also the fact that if we're forced to go first and we have this in our hand, this is a good card to kind of like set in the back row to kind of interrupt our opponent, especially if they're doing a link place or a deck. Book of Eclipse, I find running at 2 copies is more than enough for this build. If you want to change out with something else, that's absolutely fine, but I think 2 copies is definitely a good addition to the build. So that does it for the deck. Please let me know what you think. I'm quite happy with the way this turned out. Please let me know what you guys think. Any changes that you guys would make. Will you read all the comments? Be sure to leave one. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time because there's plenty more content on the way.